You're smart. The first question tricked me. But anyway, I will answer this. You know, building businesses and the experience that you gather as you go along um, is to say I'm very fortunate, especially at a time when there has been, 10-year chunks of in my 30 years, obviously three chunks of large changes that have happened, both in technology as well as the way the world is reacting into servicing consumers and providing propositions and capability. One thing very early on in my career that I learned was integrity. Now, if you're integral to what you're doing and you consciously ensure that every time integrity is kept in mind while engaging in conversations or engaging in a task or engaging in an outcome, you will realize that you are very truthful to what you're wanting to do. And integrity is basically being integral to what you believe in and what you're doing and is truthful. And that was one of the traits that has really helped me, do well in my career, also earn respect, and at the same time ensure that I'm able to influence and collaborate more effectively when I display integrity. Like over the years, and this I can reflect back, like when early part of my career, like it was all about trying to find a place for yourself in the place at work or at home or within your new set of friends or professional colleagues, and a lot of time would go in executing things that you believe is building credibility for you. And the typical day at that time would be that you get up early, you got to be first in the office, you got to be first before your boss, you got to be first in the meeting room, you got to be first to come and last to leave, right? And things like those mattered a lot because it made a difference. And that was a belief probably over the years. I realized that probably it was not a good set of values to start engaging your day on. As I grew along and with experience, I did realize that there needs to be a lot more balance. You also need to give time to unwind yourself and get into a physical sport and an activity. Now, there's one thing interesting about me is that if I show you a picture of mine 2 years back, like at any phase of my life, I would be at least 20 kilos heavier. I was 20 kilos heavier than what you see me today. So my regime changes to how I want to balance myself in terms of my physical appearance as well as my lifestyle. Now, good thing was that working for American multinationals, generally you're running around all the time, and especially if you started your career in a place like Hong Kong or India or especially Mumbai, everybody is running to some place to do something that creates value, and that sometimes made me sit back and think and realize that there are other things that I need to do to balance my life. Now, certainly when my kids were born, it was a phase where I had to reflect on some of the time that I need to give, which we call as quality time at home. I did give time for my children. However, I did very quickly realize that I was forgetting myself. Me as an individual or me as an identity was earlier getting lost because I wanted to professionally do well. Then it got lost because I was too occupied with making everybody happy around me. And then I'm at a phase now where I reflect back and sit back and do a lot of investment of time on myself. So a typical day today would be I get up early, 5:30, I have a trainer. So I go to the gym, then I walk for an hour, and then I get into a routine of getting ready to go to work. Now, with multiple assignments and different objectives in each of these assignments, you also need to ensure that your brain and your physical ability is doing what you're supposed to do for that particular objective or for that particular assignment. So that puts in a lot of rigor into my thinking and my approach to what I want to do in the day. But certainly from 9 to let's say 1:30, I do spend a lot of time thinking, planning, engaging on conversations and trying to build options up to what what should the outcomes of decisions that I make during my work life or work day should be. And after lunch, like which I do spend time on having food and proper lunch. So after lunch, I then get into doing some execution work. And around 6 is where I pack up, and then I have time for calls. I do make a lot of calls to people all over the world, chatting through work-related, family, and catching up. And then around 8:30, I again start off on my walk, which I do for an hour. And around 10 is where I just sleep off. So I try to pack in around 7 hours of sleep at least a day, and balance it between the physical activity, the brain, and then executing what I have been wanting to do during the day. I know it's a pretty long calendar that it may sound, but it's been very effective for me. The inspiration over the years have been because of the phases of life that I was in, has come from different sets of things, different sets of people, right? Like if I look at the phase that I'm in, my kids inspire me now. The kind of things that they do with fungibility of what they want to do in their music, or what they want to do with the photograph or the picture, and trying to do a lot of things which socially I don't think I would be able to do during the days I was like them, right? So I do get inspired because they're living in a very tough age, and many things to juggle, many peer pressure, a lot of societal push that they get because of the way they interact and engage. So they inspire me now. But there were different phases where I would get inspired. But one thing that kept me going, and one thing that primarily I look for myself doing, is creating a legacy for loved ones, right? And I believe that you have to become all that you want it to be, for it is a legacy for your loved ones, and you need to make it as a purpose of your life. So that is the quote. I know it's anonymous, but certainly that's what I'm inspired with, like a purpose in life to create legacy for people who are dependent on us and the whole environment and the community. Again, reflecting back, and it's probably a 30, 50 year, like if you look at the catchment time of 30, 50 years of work life of an individual. So during my days, it was very important that you had a very good education, and the pedigree of where you came from got you the first job. So the access or the entry for you to get a great job to start with was always education. Now, those were probably a very different era, and especially I come from India, so their education is very, very important in the early period of any individual's life, up to the age of 20, 24, right? So, but certainly for me, I value experience. And nowadays, like if you see that there is a lot of risk-taking ability, and with the risk-taking ability comes experience. So for me, I would value ability to take risk with experience that comes in, and make as much mistakes as you want to, but not the same mistake, is what I would value in a career. That you learn from your mistakes, but take risk, and therefore experience becomes more valuable for me. It won't be a very very apt answer that you're looking for, but for me, unwinding is eating food and then doing nothing after eating food. And that's what I love doing. However, I get very few opportunities to do it, and that's why Friday for me, which is a holiday here this part of the world, is a big day for me. That's the day when you have a big sumptuous breakfast and a big lunch, and then you sleep the day. So that's the way I would unwind. But on a lighter side, for me, or on a more serious note, for me, I think my unwinding is through the regime that I go through on my walk exercise. So I walk on an average around 25,000 steps a day. So I split between the morning and the evening. And it always happens that either if I'm away in the night, then I have to do the 25,000 steps in the morning, which basically means close to 20 kilometers walk. So that obviously means then it's around 3.5, 4 hours of walk that you need to do. So my unwinding is not a typical way of unwinding. It's more, physically walking and taking that stress off. And that's how I unwind out of the busy schedule.
Wow.
But I do ensure that I do get my walks done. And very rarely I'll miss it. It's very rare. So I'll make the time, I'll give up my sleep, or even if I come late or I wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning, I'll still go for walk. And it's very interesting. In Singapore, when I was living, when Anish and I were colleagues, I would go for my walk. Like Anish and I would go to the gym sometimes very early in the morning, by 6 or 5:30 or whatever. But I would have done already my walk for 1.5 hours, getting up at 3 in the morning. I know it sounds like a busy activity, but that's for me is unwinding. Okay, I can tell you based on my experience that commercializing and opening new markets have always been challenging. However, in my last 20 odd years, I've put in a lot of effort towards expanding and getting into new markets. One of the big lessons for entering a new market, apart from the nuances of each country or each location or each ecosystem that you go into, which is the cultural alignment to that ecosystem, is also an important factor, which is basically putting your head down and your ears to the ground. A lot of times when we are trying to commercialize, we look from the strengths of the product or the services that we are wanting to take to the new geography, and overlook what's there on the ground and what's required in the ground. Very interestingly, I know things have got commoditized, and whether it's a product or a service, you try to look at very little variance to what the intrinsic value of that product is when it was being built. And fairly, when it's a very strong commercialization approach, you do very little variance to it, to that product. But certainly, one thing that I have out of experience learned, that your first customer, if you don't manage it well, and if you don't fulfill what you promise, and if you don't keep your commitments to what you say your product and services can do or your brand value is, it'll be very difficult to establish in that market. Interestingly, culture plays a very important role, and also like some of the nuances of engaging people and more people centric than being a lot more professional towards the outcome, sometimes drive those decisions in the long run for sustenance and existence in that market. Middle East is a lot more reflective of what happens in Asia. Probably culturally there are some similarities because of the trade route and because of the exchange that happened on spice and things like those. But certainly it's a lot more family oriented, and sometimes they call it the Bedouin culture, which is primarily a large family and living in that ecosystem, supporting it, and then working along to see where you can make a difference in terms of value enhancement and then grow with it, right? And similarly, my Africa experience has been very interesting, where and I have numerous stories of sharing the breakthrough that happened, which came in when I was not expecting, but it was primarily because I was present, and every time present when the customer needed me or did not need me. And you will realize this pretty soon when you start working and engaging in these markets, that it is not the good or the bad time, it's the availability all the time. So if you're available to them, and the recall is much easier for them to reach out and engage with you, you're sure to get your first deal, large deal, small deal, entry to a market, and the perseverance and the ability to stay there with the longer horizon in mind will make a difference. and that's what I have learned over the years. Working in different markets and different landscape and different ecosystems, but certainly a lot is expected to be given before you get, for sure. And I know that sometimes the economic and the commercial model doesn't allow us to do it, but certainly, in especially in these markets in Middle East and Africa, any investment made over a longish period with integrity, which I'll go back to my first value that I gave, with integrity and ability to listen, influence, and collaborate, you will certainly get your customers and your commercials going. So obviously it's a startup, so we're trying to do a lot more than what we are trying to get by creating this capability and this ecosystem. Uh, Definitely, I don't think any founder or any set of founders are going to shy away if you get them revenue and geographical expansion, but criticality of it is that whatever is the promise that you made towards the product and the value that you're creating through those competencies and capabilities that you're building is important, and dilution of that I don't think any founder likes. So yes, we need to balance between the commercial and the productization of what we are trying to do, but being a startup, and that's the fun, you try out, you try to push some of the levers much harder than the others, and when the success comes in, you try to align to that success and then ring fence everything around which is not accretive and creating value. So definitely focus on that anchor customer, focused on the first set of revenues, and along that journey, we all have to realize that all startups do well primarily because of the people philosophy. If you do not have your people who are engaged in working in that startup with full heart, soul, and mind towards creating that capability, you will not have the startup succeeding. So certainly the satisfaction of the people, dependent on what environment that the founders and the key leadership team are creating for that startup, is critical. And certainly people are willing to give more than what they are getting, because they know that what they're believing in is going to create much more value, and also creating competency and capability for them, because it's a startup, it's a breakthrough, right? So I personally believe that if the people are not motivated, who are part of the startup, who are not energized, and who don't feel as if they are the entrepreneurs, it will not make it work well. Obviously, so the pressure is going to be because you need to get your revenues in. It's already in that phase of build. We are now needing to transport it to an ecosystem that will accept it, and also create that capability, because it's, like I said, it's a very heavily regulated environment that our product and services operate in. So we need to get along in terms of the education, the understanding, the ability to see value, and also the disruption is going to be positive as compared to a replacement of what is in the ecosystem today. And certainly the investment relating to it will be a lot in terms of education and taking people along to accept that this is the future. And certainly, if we keep waiting, and if we keep reflecting on saying, is it the right time, we may have lost the bus, right? And it's critical for us at WhattsPay to ensure that we keep our heads down, we get our first set of commercialization done, we quickly replicate rather than reinvent and reinvest in creating the same set of capabilities in new markets or new customers. Replication is the key. How fast we could replicate it, how fast we could deploy it, and also ensure that there is acceptance, and we work with regulators to build that credibility, is going to be key to us to succeed. I think we are well placed. This is a market that I believe, because of my experience and what I have built. And incidentally, I built the first unicorn in the fintech in 2010. Okay, and I believe that when I was doing that journey, I had very few believers who believe that it's possible, and there is an ability to do it. I think we are in the same set of framework that we are in, where we have built a platform that enables the old with the new, that enables an exchange that can happen seamlessly and without friction, that uses some of the new age work processes and technology frameworks that replaces the monolithic. Now, it is a challenge, but a good challenge to get into, to displace, or also to supplement in terms of consumer proposition and consumer behavior, which is pushing us to move towards what we are wanting to do. Uh, there is a lot of use cases that are there. However, the scalability of it and the acceptability of it is where I think a lot of education and co-laboring with the ecosystem which is existent today, and the regulator and the operators, would enable us to establish well in this part of the world. We are seeing some early interest. There have been conversations, and I know for sure that there are. Um, I won't say skeptical, but there are people who are waiting in the wings to see who makes the first move. And I think we are positioned well, and with Anish and the great team that he's built in Singapore, we are well placed to bring those capabilities here, and very soon you'll hear some successes. I'm pretty confident. I am damned. Whichever answer I give, I'm going to get damned. Okay, but jokes apart, it is important that you need a set of founding values, and you need a set of framework which the founders bring. It is also important that there is a sweat, and there is a belief and a capability that the founders funnel and energize. However, there are sets of people who come in believing the founder and the leadership around the whole framework that builds those capabilities of the startup is what makes the difference. If you don't have the people who are, believing as much as you are believing, and the team is not along with you, it will be very difficult for you to succeed, because people will be rowing in different directions, right? So it's critical that yes, the founding team is important, the founders are important, but it also the set of people who come along the journey and who actually translate the vision into a capability that is acceptable, and create markets and create competencies that are viable and commercially scalable, are also critically important. So I would balance it, and that's why I know 30 or 20 years back it was very difficult for equity creation for the team, and it would be always self-centered around the few set of people who would extract the maximum value. uh, there's nothing wrong in that philosophy, but certainly things have changed, and with the risk-taking ability and the appetite to engage on a journey which is difficult and sometimes incomprehensible, and if you are able to go through perseverance and create that capability, you win, and the stakes are very high for it, right? And certainly the people who are in the team then matter as well in this journey. Ah, I know I try to balance it because I've been on both sides of the equation, but certainly I can empathize and sympathize with the founding team and the founders, that it is the sweat, it is the sleepless nights that they go through, it is the pressure on the cash flow, it is the pressure on uh, execution versus build, it's the pressure on competencies and capabilities that are newer in form and fashion to be coined into what you have already done, versus commercializing pretty quickly and getting your first set of revenues, it's a very tough task. A very tough task. No doubt, the risk and the return equation is probably, probably in that same wavelength as what you will see most of the success stories reflecting.